I really don't like the way they say their names every time.
I'm gonna start doing that.
Or don't.
Every time I introduce myself now, I'm just gonna come in. Arthur!
Puts a jacket on. Arthur.
Arthur!
Takes a jacket off. Arthur.
Arthur! Puts one sock on. Arthur! Puts the other sock on. Arthur!
Well, that would be a nightmare.
That would be awful.
Sorry.
It's your team's turn to ban.
AFK.
What?
Did you say AFK?
He did say AFK. What
Your
is...
team's turn to ban.
Dude, what is that title that our Ben 101er has?
Always trolling or AFK. That's good. I'm sure this game is going to go well. I'm getting a really good impression of the ranked scene.
Ignore 'em. Don't need to think about what they're talking about right
No,
now.
I'm more curious than anything. I like that Master of Herb is convinced he's talking to him.
Your team's turn to ban.
This man's running a fucking toaster.
My guy comes in, one guy starts flaming everyone, then stops talking, the other guy starts defending himself by flaming back, and the third guy comes in, thinks he's flaming him.
He's got a level 78 Furia. And he's in our placement games.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he's expecting from me.
That should be good, bro. Oh my god.
I'm needed on the front.
You're mine, little man.
Excuse me, bro.
Capture the objective. The objective. Capture the objective. The objective.
Capture the objective. Come on, let's help the front line. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, we actually got it. Nice.
Keep your hand out. I knew you had my back. Incinerate them.
Nice, we're too good.
Flank left.
As we're just taking the left route through.
Advance. I'll breach that wall. I needed that. Thank you. Come on.
Why am I alone?
No, I mean...
Time's ticking.
Safe ultimate.
See, what are they doing all the way over there?
You lost.
How the fuck am I being flamed figured? I was on the point for most of the game alone.
On to the next one, on to the next one.
I was in the midst of my 11 daily hours on YouTube scrounging through my recommended when a video caught my eye. Should you play Paladins in 2023 by Reventric, whose channel is largely centered, funnily enough, on Paladins. A 2016 hero shooter developed by Hyro Studios that takes heavy inspiration, shall we say, from Overwatch. To be truthful, I watched it for the thumbnail, but I had played Paladins closer to when it was released, and with the current climate around Overwatch, I was a bit beyond curious. Also, a friend of mine keeps bringing it up, so two birds, you know. Reventric's video mentions how a lot of Overwatch players were trying to find a new game and giving Paladins a shot, reminding me of the whole WoW exodus to Final Fantasy XIV, and how the game was actually in a really good place at the moment with the company climate, because the developers, Evil Mojo I think they're called, have been effectively left to their own devices. It does also go over plenty of the game's drawbacks, including an apparent issue with higher level hackers, which I cannot confirm nor deny. Because I think Reventric understands, as I'm starting to, that Paladins is a game where you need to know what you're walking into if you're really going to enjoy it. The whole video is well worth a watch, as he uses his frankly insane amount of hours in the game to give you a very honest take on this jank ass product that he clearly has a lot of love for, and I'll leave a link for it in the description. So I played it. Aside from my aspect ratio having an actual mind of its own the first couple times I launched the game, it is relatively friendly to new players. I retook the tutorial having not played the game in something like 5+ years, which you go through with Victor, who's oddly similar to Soldier 76 and is one of the game's simpler characters. It takes you through pretty much what you would expect, including the game's main keybinds and how your general objective gameplay works. It even tells you about the mounts which you have leaving spawn to get you back to the action faster. There is, however, nothing on the game's more advanced systems, despite it being pretty mandatory. Card decks, items and talents are nowhere to be seen, talents especially. You pick one at the start of the game and it's like a permanently active change, a buff of some kind, but many of them will completely change the way your character plays, so I thought it was a bit weird that you get just no warning for this. Cards and items I can kind of get over. With card decks you have 3 preset ones for every character. You choose them at the start of the game, and from what I can tell they're all pretty decent-ish. Card decks sort of act like passives that go throughout the game. And items, you have an auto-buy option if you don't want to deal with the hassle of like figuring it out. It did take me way too long to realise that auto-buy buys the same items every game. It doesn't matter who you're playing or what, it always buys the same 4 items. So just keep an eye out for that. Items aren't that complex anyway, there's only about 16 in total and they're all kind of basic. It's more based on what kind of character you're playing. Other than the tutorial, there is a shooting range where you can try any character, and it does let you pick your talents and card decks and items, so you can experiment with all that stuff there. It just won't be the same as the in-game environment, obviously. They also have separate training modes for Siege and Onslaught. Siege has you fight over a control point, and whoever wins the point gets to try and push a payload. It's kind of funky and it seems to be the default ranked mode. It's pretty fun. And Onslaught is 1 control point. It's the first to 400 points I think, and you get points by owning the control point. It's a King of the Hill type situation. The other game mode's Payload, but Payload is Payload. If you've played anything like this, you know Payload. You push the payload. It doesn't really need a practice mode. Paladins is relatively easy to pick up anyway, with its very arcadey nature. The biggest hurdle is going to be character selection, so you don't really need to worry too much about trying these, but they're nice to have there. Now, let's move on to actually playing the video game. The quick play experience is actually quite pleasant. You select what modes you want and it will throw you into a multi-queue. It seems to even include limited time game modes, but I never actually got around to trying one. Queues pop quick and you're in champ select before you know it, where you get a little box in the bottom right that tells you the mode and map you're in case you weren't listening to our wonderful announcer, Hololive's Amelia Watson.
Payload. Choose your champion. Rover's my favorite. Customize your champion. The battle is about to begin. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I was quite befuddled to unlock this announcer pack, but you know what? I like it. And here we found my next problem. Who am I actually going to play? In hero-based games, I tend to lean toward like hard-hitting tanks, spending a healthy majority of my Overwatch days as a Reinhardt main, so naturally most of my quick play time was spent with Khan. This Space Marine looking beefcake is equipped with what might as well be a small cannon, a personal shield, a short-range AoE heal, and a charge move that throws the first person hit behind him. His ultimate ability allows you to grab someone for a limited time from like halfway across the map, doing damage each second and making said grabby completely helpless until they either die or you throw them at someone. I refer to the beginning of the video for the victim's perspective.
You're mine, little man.
Excuse me, bro? It is a highly enjoyable ability, and this sort of varied insanity is what you can expect from pretty much every character. These early games went by with a good amount of success, largely with Khan and the occasional sprinkling in of other characters like Victor and Bomb King for damage and Ceres in support. A large majority of those games were payload, which makes sense. It's probably the most straightforward mode. It has the usual dynamic where the attackers tend to have an easier time at the start and it gets harder to push through the defense toward the end. I do wonder if the game has a secret beginner's queue sort of thing, because when I say large majority I mean it. Mostly on the same map too, but at some point the variety was upped considerably. In fact, I think after a certain point I just didn't get payload anymore. On the subject of maps actually, the maps are weird. Visually they're neat, bright colours and funky aesthetics, but their designs are a bit unhinged if I'm honest. Let's look at Greenwood Outpost, the map I was playing for most of those early games. You have two exits from attack spawn, a sort of flank path on the right and the left exit which has the payload right outside. From the tunnel and the high ground, a few defenders can constantly chip away at attackers leaving spawn into this large initial room where they are basically sitting ducks. There is a tower blocking the two sides, but all that really does is section off a fight that already seems to be going the defender's way. Then the payload actually gets into the tunnel. Again, kinda like shooting fish in a barrel for defense. There's also this staircase from like halfway, which, you know, just in case you weren't boxed in enough, people can come in and gank you from the back. Next is this like open field with again lots of sightlines, and this is basically the theme. Paladins maps manage to feel very boxy, like you're constantly cornered, while also getting shot from every possible angle, often favouring one side specifically in the experience I had. Just take a look at this next part of the map. The payload has to go around the side of this building. One side has two rocks, taller than any character that I can tell, and the other has these two giant open windows above you. You can also get on top of that building. It feels more like a shooting gallery, and that feeling continues round the corner. A lot of the maps have this similar quality to them. They're very scrappy and promote constant aggression from different angles and pathways. But when things become difficult, these maps also become very difficult to play. But moving on from that, part of the reason this game is so easy to enjoy in a very casual setting when you're playing with friends is because the balance is completely fucked for maps and characters alike. For those aware of Hi-Rez and the other games they have released, Smite included, you'll know that balance is not exactly their strong suit. They make absurd characters and designs and stuff that pump out ridiculous numbers, and characters are very much not born equal. For the first 2 days, almost all my footage is Khan matches, but the further you go through my games, the less he shows up. I am no stranger to the lament of the common tank player. If there is a tank role in a game, that is often where you will find me, with all the pain that can include. You could be the beefiest beefcake you dream of being, but if your team doesn't actually play around your existence, you can often feel more akin to a punching bag. And that was very much my experience. An experience I became all too familiar with as we hit the level 15 threshold and we decided to make the jump into ranked. Let me just go over the roles in a bit more detail. I promise this is important. Frontline is where you find Khan. They're the big hitbox characters, they do decent damage, they've got good survivability on a personal and team basis. They're your classic tank characters. Support is pretty self-explanatory, although they are more about team utility than straight healing. They all have a heal, but they tend to be quite restricted, and in big fights anti-heal seems super prevalent. I'm still not entirely sure on the details though. Ceres, for example, does have a solid heal. It does good numbers and even heals nearby teammates for a portion, but it gets kind of overshadowed by her weapon. She shoots these orbs that pass through enemies, dealing damage and applying a stack. You hit Q and that will detonate the stacks, and detonating 4 stacks will apply a healthy stun. Play your cards right and you can stun the entire team. It's very easy to just sort of like lob your orbs across the battlefield too, they've got really good reach. Healing becomes a bit of an afterthought, I felt. Not that you don't do a ton of healing, because you do, but I still find the way it is managed to be more of a side tool than any other character's prime function. There's no like mercy or anything like that. Damage characters, funnily enough, they're built to do damage, just straight damage, you know, good numbers. A few even have ADS options for one of their abilities to make them more accurate, or change firing type, which increases their general damage output. Then there are flankers, and I will try my best not to rant till death here, because this is where I found genuine issue with the game. Flankers are assassin type characters on the squishier side, but with high damage and good mobility options. I would argue too good. Skye in particular became a character that I felt needed to be banned in my games. With two distinct triggers for invisibility, poison dot damage to go with her generally high DPS output, and just being really goddamn slippery, she became the bane of my existence, with many similar issues for the other flankers. Except for Lex, not only does he visually remind me of Lucian from League of Legends, but so is the way he gets played in my games. From my admittedly limited experience, the games would become a competition of which team had the more competent flanker, or sometimes, God forbid, flankers plural. They get in, they decimate the spread backline, and allow the rest of the team to converge on my frontline player Nas, who is trying to fight the point. This became a trend I was seeing a bit too often for my taste. So, our final placement game, at least we're pretty sure it was the final placement game. There's some like bizarre issue where the placement games stayed at 0 for the entire duration.
I wonder if it's like a known issue. Sometimes it's just delayed.
Rank placement's not progressing. 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got one from 2020. Yeah. So I've played 30 plus ranked games, but yet to have a rank. Oh my god.
Apparently this has been an issue since the game's inception, but unlike a lot of people, we did actually get ranks. Hello, Silver 3, good job, yep, Anyway, by the time we reached our last placement game, I was a broken man, so I first timed Vora. Vora is a character who provided me with much grief in my previous games, but she was cool enough that I was interested to commit the sin and play the character. There were a few moments where we almost lost the game, but I gotta be honest, it was the easiest game I played in the entire 10 hours. Absolutely shredding everyone who dared to look in a different direction, taking down their support on cooldown because they were constantly alone, outplaying the enemy flanker Vatu. I was having a whale of a time playing what frankly felt like an easier game. It pissed me off, I'm gonna be honest. Don't get me wrong, unless you're actually curb stomping, your team does still need some level of competence to capitalize off the pressure you're creating. And like I said, if the opposing flanker is better than you, it's basically curtains. I have no doubt that solid communication and team play can seriously shut down flankers, but this is Silver 3 Paladins, where the only time voice chat got used was the dude in the opening of the video.
She jumped off.
That works.
You ultied and she just jumped off.
I didn't really restrain myself in the way I wanted to, but I just feel like I need to get the point across. This is not a game that was built for ranked. It's a game that's built for casual play because the whole thing is just scuffed. I do feel obligated to mention that the queue times for ranked were actually criminal. We had a couple 10+ minute queues in comparison to the near instant ones we had for quick play, and for that to be followed by a likely heavy butt weapon and a heavy dose of toxicity from the local Lex main, it takes a toll. Quick play is significantly easier to just enjoy because the second you get into ranked, the imbalance of the entire system becomes so much clearer, and it kind of I started feeling a bit toxic. The ranked experience is not without joy, I wouldn't personally recommend it. One of the many ways Overwatch ended up losing me over time was when the balance started to shift into giving every character stupid damage. It was when they started like reworking characters to remove their utility options for damage ones. It started to take all the personality out of the characters for a game that was getting too fast and too hectic, and Paladins feels quite similar. But the difference with Paladins is it doesn't take itself seriously in the slightest. It's very cartoonish and it's got such a free to play feel. That feeling of getting scammed I get from Overwatch is not nearly as strong here. And while I did go off on one at the end there, On a more overall basis, my time with Paladins has been very enjoyable. It's messy, it's buggy, the characters are ridiculous, the skins are dreadful, like actually awful, and those lower level lobbies are quite toxic. But the game has a charm in its ridiculousness and more than a pinch of chaos. Personally, I'm not sure I would recommend Ranked, but as a game to have a laugh with friends, it more than fits the bill. We had a great time. And if you're sick and tired of Overwatch literally robbing you, then I'd give it a shot. Plus, it'll run on a toaster. That's been my 10 hours for Paladins. Seriously, it is enjoyable. You have to kind of accept the absolutely scuffed nature of the entire game if you're going to enjoy it, though. So I'd give it a go. It's got a chaos factor that Overwatch maybe did have at one point, but certainly doesn't anymore. And it makes for a good time. Certainly to just play a couple rounds with your friends. That's it for the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you would like to see more, and drop a comment. If you played Paladins, how did you find it? If you haven't, do you think you'll try it again? You know, let me know, and I will see you in the next video.
Found my first target. I've had enough of the lot of them.
Just target banning flank.
Nah, I won't be that.
Get him out of there. Get him gone.
Get him gone. I might ironically pick 4 again anyway. That way I get the cringe one. It's funny, 'cause if they don't pick flank here, I could just ban 2 more flank.
Do it.
Leave
Do it.
them
That'd be
without
funny.
options.
That would be so funny. Get Vatu. Vatu gone. Vatu gone.
Vatu gone.
Vatu and Lex.
Oh, dude.
Vatu and Lex.
They'd fucking dodge, guaranteed.
Oh.
Oh no, they actually do.
Ooh.
Alright, I guess this is
Vatu
happening.
Lex,
Sorry,
Vatu
fellas.
Turn to ban.
I hope you didn't want to play flank this game. Goodbye, Alexa, old buddy.
Enemy's turn to ban.
Oh shit, and drops. I forgot he's a flank.
No, they managed to still get one.
Damn.